Your primetime news with Israel Lai.
Good evening and welcome to the primetime news on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. Coming up in the bulletin, Ghana's development partners challenge President John Mahama to intensify his fight against corruption and also cut down on public spending. The Progressive People's Party describes the 2013 budget as a budget without hope for fundamental change as it failed to address the pressing needs of the country. Lapses in the transfer of power have prompted calls for policy analysts for a review of the Presidential Transition Act. In business, another indigenous firm begins assembling trucks for the West African market, and elsewhere on the continent, one of Kenya's leading presidential candidates has alleged vote rigging in Monday's polls. All these and more coming up presently. In our very first story, the British High Commissioner to Ghana, Peter Jones, has praised Ghana's democracy. Despite what he refers to as few hitches resulting from the legal challenge of the election results by the New Patriotic Party. According to him, the fact that Ghanaians did not resort to violence but a legal process to seek redress is worthy of emulation.
The Media Open Day was organized to take the media through the operations of the British High Commission and also to demystify perceptions about the Commission.
There is nothing arbitrary about any refusal for any visa. So I personally will make sure that the visa section in Accra, which covers the whole of West Africa, bar Nigeria, and is responsible for processing all the visa applications around that part of the world, comes in. It goes through a process where a qualified entry clearance officer will assess that application and, against the immigration rules set down by the UK, will then determine whether or not that visa should be granted or not. And actually, we review more of the ones we decide to refuse than the ones we decide to issue, because it's a big issue to refuse someone a visa. And
the British High Commission does not only operate a visa application section. The Department for International Development, for instance, is the power of the UK government that is aimed at reducing poverty across the world. The commission under this department opened the Millennium Village project in rural communities in Ghana in August last year, which is currently solving water and sanitation related problems, as well as health, agriculture and education. The project is aimed at supporting 30,000 persons in rural communities. The Commission also operates a trades and investment section to help grow businesses in Ghana and beyond, as well as a political and public affairs department to assist Ghana in political related issues. The High Commissioner, Peter Jones, speaking on Ghana's political standing, lauded the country for a good show of democracy and governance, despite the problems the country faced during the 2012 elections.
Within Africa, I think you can be very, very proud of what you Ghanaians have been developing over the last 20 years. As with our democratic system, it's not perfect, but I think it's evolving extremely positively. I was very impressed on election day here to go around and see some of the election polling stations, to see people like yourselves queuing up to vote very peacefully, very orderly way, taking it extremely seriously, well policed, at least as far as I could see, and to go to the counting at the end of the day and see how engaged everyone was in that process and how much it mattered to everybody that your vote was there and was counted and that the process was fair. So I think something very impressive is being built here in terms of a democratic system, and it should carry on being improved. I think the Electoral Commission would say that too. I mean, that they would be in the business of continually improving. As I said earlier on, the fact that the losing party has made a challenge, but in a very responsible way, doing it in a legal manner through the courts, I think that is also grounds for encouragement.
1 in 3 people with glaucoma, an eye disease that gradually steals vision, are unaware they have the condition. The prevalence rate in the country is meanwhile said to be increasing, a matter that's of great concern to the Glaucoma Association of Ghana. The association is therefore calling for the establishment of a secretariat which will be financially supported to run the campaign against the disease.
According to the World Health Organization, glaucoma is responsible for some 12% of all blindness, making it the second leading cause. It is characterized by progressive damage of the optic nerve, which then causes peripheral visual field loss and eventually blindness. Officials of the Glaucoma Association say the statistics in Ghana are grim.
Of the population that are getting treatment, 10%, 1 out of 10 get blind anyway. It's very high. As you heard in the study that was made, it was 8% here in Ghana, and the US is only 2% at age 40. That's why we're encouraging people to go and get themselves checked if you fall into these risk groups.
There are typically no early warning signs and develop slowly, sometimes without noticeable sight loss for many years. To intensify the education and awareness, the Glaucoma Week, which is celebrated worldwide every second week of March, was launched on Thursday at the Ministry of Health with calls for stepped-up efforts to arrest the situation.
We are also requesting that any Ghanaian or every Ghanaian should be allowed to walk into any private or public institution for free eye screening during the World Glaucoma Week celebration, as this will help detect eye conditions quickly and refer them to appropriate specialists for early treatment. Indeed, we need a full-time secretariat for Glaucoma Association to help this crusade.
The Minister for Health, Sheria Ite, also pledged her ministry's support.
We have to reduce the incidence of 700,000 people in Ghana to at least a single digit. Trying to set up a mobile clinic and let's put few equipment for eye testing in these mobile vans, so that when we go outside, to the rural areas, and then test their eyes.
The Glaucoma Week celebration, which starts from March 10 to 17, would be climaxed with a free eye screening session for the general public at Nima.
The energy situation is expected to improve at the middle of this year. This was reaffirmed after the utility providers VRA, ECG and GridCo and the Energy Commission today met Parliament's Committee on Energy and Mines to discuss the crisis. This meeting was held behind closed doors, but Joy News has secured documents that speak to the VRA's position on the crisis. Among other things, the authority says its finances are under serious threat because the company spends $3 million a day to run its thermal plant using light crude oil. Parliamentary correspondent Elton John Brobe joins me in the studio with more on this subject. Good evening to you, Elton.
Good evening.
Tell us more about what is contained in this document.
Well, according to this document, this clearly establishes VRA's challenges regarding the ongoing
current crisis. So what are the challenges they've identified,
so for
apart
them,
from the $3 million you're spending to run the thermal plants?
They are of the view that this is having a toll on their finances because according to them, a cargo of light crude oil is used for thermal generation every 20 days at a cost of $55 million. And from September to December 2012, a total of $340 million was used. Now, for the first quarter of this year, 2013, VRA expects to purchase 6 cargoes of light crude oil to power available thermal plants. Government has purchased 3 cargoes of the LCOs to help the situation. Now, the long-term implication for them, according to this document we have secured, is that considering the volume of crude oil VRA purchases, a small change in the price of crude oil could result in huge disparity between income and expenditure. This trend has adversely affected VRA's balance sheet and ability to fund or attract funding for their expansion projects.
Okay. So what do they want done? What do they expect the parliamentary committee to do?
Well, for them to address this particular issue, even though they are of the view that from now till April, we will see a substantial improvement in the situation. But they are demanding immediate upward tariff adjustment. For them, it's required to improve VRA's finances. To ensure sustainability, it's imperative that they are granted this. If they don't get it, the long-term effect is that they will not be able to implement the projects they have embarked on, which will mean that in the long term, we will not be able to have, 100% power generation in the country. Essentially, they can't assure us that of continued, consistent supply if they don't get the tariffs you're talking about. You're right. And they are also, what sort of increases are they expecting? What percentages? It is not clear. It is not clear on this particular paper, but I'm told after the meeting, they prevailed on the committee to, as it were, carry their concerns to government, for government to act swiftly. Now, it remains to be seen what will happen, because now people are not really happy with what is going on in the country, and for them to be bombarded with another increment. I can imagine. So what sort of response did they get from the members of the committee? The committee will have to report finally to the House in general, and then we'll take it from there. But for now, what is clear is that between the VRA, between ECG, GREDCO, and the Energy Commission, everybody appears to have his own challenges regarding a resolution to this energy crisis we are facing in this country. All right, thank you very much, Elton John Brobe, and he is our parliamentary correspondent, giving us the very latest on this particular story. Now, as you just heard, it turns out that the VRA, the utility providers, are pushing for tariff adjustment. They want more. They want us to pay more for the electricity we consume. We'll see how it all pans out. Now, 2 persons have been confirmed dead and 7 others injured following Wednesday's violent clash between some Konkumbas and Bimobas at Kwemali, a community in Nangpanduri in the northern region. The clashes were sparked by a disagreement between members of the 2 groups over a parcel of land on which the Kwemali RC primary school is situated. The situation led to sporadic shooting in the town, and several residents have been forced to flee the community. Public Relations Officer of the Northern Region Police Command, ASP Ebenezer Tete, confirmed the casualties in an interview with Joy News. He says the dead have been buried whilst the injured are receiving treatment at various health centers in the region. The clashes between the Bimobas and Bunkumbas have resulted in the injury of 9 police officers, 3 of whom are said to be in critical condition. The feuding factions fired gunshots at a police team that was patrolling Kwemali to maintain peace.
9 security officers who were responding to distress call as a result of the burning of houses at the area. Our information is that they were fired upon, and the driver of the car panicked, and the vehicle veered off the road, fell into a ditch, and somersaulted several times. As we speak, 2 military officers and 3 police officers are still on admission at the Nalerugu Government Hospital, whilst 4 others have been treated at the We have deployed more men to the area, and they are on the ground as we speak, and calm has also returned to the area. So the information we have is that 2 people died as a result of the clash. They have, however, been buried since.
The diplomatic community has challenged government to do more to fight corruption and cut down on public spending. In a marked departure from the usual diplomatic approach to issues, the ambassadors of the development partners stated they were disappointed with the country's fiscal performance last year and are also concerned about corruption. Head of the EU delegation in Ghana, Claude Martin, spoke on behalf of his colleagues when they met the president under the umbrella of the newly formed Government Development Partners Group at the Flagstaff House.
Formation of the group was to operationalize a candid dialogue platform at that high level to follow up on compact implementations and other mutual agreements. Ambassador Claude Martin said deficits from last year's poor fiscal performance of the economy create serious risks for the country.
Fiscal performance last year was an unwelcome repeat of Ghana's recent history of poor fiscal performance during election years. Large deficit creates serious risks for Ghana's continued progress and success. It jeopardizes growth opportunities, constrains new investments, and adds to debt in a context where public debt has risen quickly. Today, levels are around what they were before the major debt relief a decade ago. So we welcome your decision to reduce fuel subsidies and your commitment to increase domestic tax revenue. More needs to be done to ensure macroeconomic stability, and we look forward to having a detailed discussion with your team soon.
He had some suggestions for government.
The quality of some services is far below what Ghanaians have the right to expect. Improving public financial management, reducing the number of people on the public payroll, ensuring decentralization is more effective, improving performance of the staff, strengthening accountability, to name just a few. Not everyone can be done at once, but we encourage you and will help you if you would like assistance to be ambitious and take some major steps towards establishing the efficient public service that Ghana needs. That is a public sector that ensures citizens have access to high-quality services and that they can see that the value of each cedi is well spent.
He concluded noting that expectations of the diplomatic community has risen based on accountability, transparency and value for money as signed in the compact with governments last year. In response, President John Mahama said the public procurement law will be strengthened as a giant step in tackling corruption.
One of the things we want to do is to be transparent in putting out the numbers and letting Ghanaians know that this is what the state of your economy is, this is what the budget is. I believe that if Ghanaians know what the numbers are, they will understand what we're dealing with and they'll be prepared to work with us to make sure that we provide a stronger economy. And we must reduce the number of sole sourcing, contracts that are given as much as possible. Every project should go to tender so that we're sure that we're getting value for money.
Public expenditure would also be vigorously regulated.
Above all, we must reduce expenditure and cut out waste. And that is one of the areas that we need to work on and look at. Of course, there are pressures, for various services and for various investments to be made in different sectors all across the country. But we should make them in areas where the budget is able to, contain it. And also reduce frivolous expenditure of MDAs, rationalize, how MDAs utilize resources to make sure that those resources that are allocated to them from the budget are utilized in the best interest of the people and as efficiently as possible.
He attributed some of the challenges identified by the development partners to the apparent overnight transition of Ghana to a middle-income economy coupled with the usual election year shocks, and expressed optimism the country would grow out of it in the next few years.
Meanwhile, the Progressive People's Party has criticized the 2013 budget presented last Wednesday as one without hope for fundamental change. The party announced its position at a media interaction this morning.
PPP Parliamentary Group Chairman Kwabna Otre said the budget did not meet the expectations and also failed to tackle pressing issues confronting the country. He said looking at the current crisis, the budget should have dealt with the difficulties with electricity, graduate unemployment and the LPG shortage.
When a finance minister is coming to present a budget, we're expecting him to tell us, one, how he's going to raise money within the country. Number two, how they intend to spend those monies to solve the energy crisis. Number three, how they intend to create jobs, practical solutions towards creating jobs for Ghanaian people. If you read through the budget, The minister doesn't provide answers to any of these questions.
The PPP also criticized the presentation, maintaining that presenting tax reviews to Parliament is not the best measure to prevent the country from running into deficit this year, and called for the size of government to be trimmed.
You must cut down the size of government. There are ministers, 6 of them at the presidency, with the pretext that there are about 40-something institutions that doesn't fall under any ministry. There's not a single institution at the presidency that cannot fall under any ministry. You have a minister responsible for scholarship, minister for private sector. You have regional ministers who virtually are doing nothing. All these people are strenuous.
As far as the PPP is concerned, the 2013 budget is selling an ideological mission to the Ghanaian, rather than practical solutions to the country's problems. The party believes the NDC government owes Ghanaians a well-prepared, clear and specific budget.
You're watching the Primetime News on the Joy News channel. We'll be back with more stories. Policy analysts are calling for a review of the Presidential Transition Act to correct some lapses that were identified in the latest handover of power after the 2012 election. Key amongst the loopholes identified is the silence of the Act on the processes involved when an incumbent government has to hand over to itself. The areas for possible review were discussed today at a forum organized by the Institute of Economic Affairs, which sponsored the Act.
The Presidential Transition Act, established by an Act of Parliament in May 2012, seeks to deepen the country's democracy by ensuring the smooth transfer of political power from one elected government to another. The Act came into effect for the first time after the 2012 presidential and parliamentary elections, and it was during this process that some key challenges were identified with the Act. The analysts, among others, are also calling for a review of the 2-day timeline between the election of the Speaker and swearing in of members of Parliament and the inauguration of the President. Second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Garte, said the Transition Act did not also clearly spell out the transition roles of MPs and the other government agencies.
For me, there are 2 fundamental difficulties with the Transition Act. And the first difficulty can be seen from its heading. Its heading is Presidential Transition Act. That assumes that the only change that occurs is with the presidency. The second flaw is that it does not seem to look at the situation that happened this year. One government handing over to itself. And the Supreme Court has made it clear that even if it's the same government, it has over to itself. Attorney General versus J.H. Mensah, when the question of whether ministers should be vetted again, yes, even if it's the same Attorney General going to become Attorney General after 4 years, after the second term of the president, he must go once again to vet. There's nothing automatic about it.
It was for this and many other reasons that the Institute of Economic Affairs IEA held the workshop to review its implementation to ensure its application in 2016 would be much better. Policy analyst at the IEA, Dr. Michael Ofori, nonetheless chided MPs and government for failing to fully comply.
The President duly made an appointment to the transition team as required by the law. However, the number of people on the transition team, in my view, could have been less, as this was not a transfer of power from one administration to another. Indeed, there is a need to put a cap on the numbers or on the numbers in the transition team when an incumbent is re-elected. Again, turning to implementation, the President also appointed an advisory council. But the advisory council, the rationale behind the advisory council is a conflict resolution body. And in my view, it may not have been entirely necessary for this transition.
He described the non-adherence to some portions as a breach of law, a precedent that was dangerous to the country's fledgling democracy. Former Second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, cited some historical incidents he says suggest successive governments are not so keen about transition procedures.
I remember very well in the year 2001, after the 2000 elections, the protocol department started to talk about handing over. And some of us were very vehement about any handing over as such. They said, now we are in the constitutional era. There was not going to be any handing over. And we shall go as it is done in America and as per our constitution.
Regional ministers have been told to be of good judgment in their various regions and ensure the development and growth of their respective areas. President Mahama was speaking to 3 more regional ministers who were sworn into office earlier today.
The 3, Julius Deborah for the Eastern Region, Helen Ajwa Ntoso, Volta Regional Minister, and Ephraim Avia for the Upper East Region, received their appointment scroll after taking the oaths of office, secrecy and allegiance. The President reiterated the need for them not to sit behind their benches, but to go out and work hard. The President said cabinet meetings would be rotated around the regions to also serve as checks on their performance.
Your work is very critical in terms of 1, maintaining peace and stability in your regions, in terms of 2, ensuring that government programs are being implemented properly in your regions, and in terms of 3, ensuring that there is development and progress in those regions. As head of the regional security councils, you have to take decisions on the spur of the moment, depending on what is happening. There are land disputes, there are chieftaincy disputes, and there are various flashpoints that could lead to insecurity in your region. And so you must be able to make a proper assessment at any one time about any security situation and be able to take decisions that can prevent harm to human beings.
On behalf of her colleagues, the Volta Regional Minister Helen Ntonso pledged a steady commitment to delivering above expectations.
Pledge our support, unflinching support and commitment in pursuing the Better Ghana agenda.
Also at the Flagstaff House was the Japanese ambassador to Ghana, Naoto Nikai, who presented a 15-year-old student of Prempeh College at Boating, who has won the Japanese AFS Intercultural Exchange Program. President Mahama urged him to be an ambassador for Ghana in Japan. Boating will be infused into a Japanese home and school to learn from their culture as part of efforts to deepen relations between the 2 countries.
Okay, so what do you do when there's a clash between military and prison officers after a football match? You just organize another football match and let them play and smoke the peace pipe. That's exactly what happened in Yendi.
2 people were injured last weekend when the football game between prisons and military officers degenerated into a fight. But after a municipal security meeting, another football match was organized yesterday to settle any differences between the 2 agencies. The Independence Day game was fun-packed. Acting Northern Regional Commander of the Prison Service, ADP Victor Duchebe, who spoke on behalf of the security agency, said the main purpose of the unification game was to let the general public understand that there is no bad blood between the 2 security commands in the area.
I just want to consider last Saturday's incident as something very unfortunate. It's something that was unfortunate. In fact, those games were meant to be fun games. There are things that we normally do every year, just to bring the security services together. We are here just to let the world know that there was not anything, it was not a fight between the military and the prisons. We are living here together, and we don't want anybody to divide our ranks.
Municipal Chief Executive for Yendi, Issa Zakaria, who supervised the unification game, told Joy News he was happy the 2 security services have resolved their differences. The match had support from financial company Bayport Financial Services.
We'll bring you business after the show. Another indigenous firm has begun the local assembling of trucks specifically designed for the West African market. The first batch of the multi-purpose heavy-duty vehicles designed for waste collection, farming, mining and other industrial purposes were outdoored at the company's offices in Tema today. Dr. Zankuma was there and a report is brought to you.
The Wound to Me Griffin series is a wholly Ghanaian initiative conceptualized and designed to meet the industrial needs of the country. The truck branded Wound to Me, Lion of Africa, features a hydraulic dumping system designed for self-tipping purposely for easy operation and to provide the best of comfort for drivers in discharging content. The company believes the vehicle have been introduced at the appropriate time to meet the needs of public institutions, including metropolitan, municipal, district assemblies and tertiary and second cycle institutions.
The institutions, can come in and we can do something like that. District assemblies and stuff. So this one, I think Minister of Agric and Minister of Mines and local government and environment, it will be the decision for them to call for us to sit down and then we do it together.
Chief Executive Bernard Entry-Boesiakon asked Ghanaians to get involved and get the country industrialized.
I'm throwing a challenge for people who have knowledge or who have the means more than me to come home for us to build our nation, because it's only Ghanaians who can build it. And once we make it attractive, then the expatriate or the foreign or Western world will come in to help.
25 of the trucks have so far rolled out from the company's assembly plant at Dodoa. The company hopes to produce another 75 before the end of the year and subsequently introduce new designs in the next few years.
So Wound to Me Lion of Africa is not exactly a Mercedes line of trucks, but it looks pretty sturdy and I'd say it's a good start. J.A. Planpool is the other firm assembling trucks locally. A few more of these and we'll probably be on our way. In other business news, the 3-year bond issued by government today to finance short-term instruments and that are maturing in infrastructure projects has been heavily oversubscribed. Joy Business checks indicates the government received almost 915 million Ghana cedis worth of bids from investors. Even though it set out to mobilize 400 million Ghana cedis, it have accepted only 416 million cedis, while the bond will have a yield of 17% return for investors, slightly higher than what it gave out in the January bond issue. Managers of the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement System have rejected reports banks in Takrady are refusing to allow customers to undertake transactions on the eSwitch platform. Some media reports claim eSwitch customers in Takrady were being denied access to the service by banks due to network challenges. But managers of GIPS say reports received from the banks revealed the system is up and running with customers actively transacting business. Hundreds of workers of Chinese firm Central Steel, formerly Wahome Steel Company near Bong in Tema, have been demonstrating over unpaid allowances. The workers are complaining that they are yet to be giving appointment letters after 2 years of service. According to them, a recent agreement reached between them and management has elapsed without any assurances. One of the workers who spoke to Joy Business earlier today says they will not work until they see their appointment letters. Next up, we bring you smart investment tips. Now, Vice President Kwesi Misaratha has begun a process of consultation with captains of industry to discuss how to save the economy whilst guarding against what they describe as a rising cost of doing business in Ghana. According to the Vice President, the outcome of the meeting will inform policy changes. A delegation of industry representatives from the Private Enterprises Foundation met with the Vice President and Ministers of State at the Flagstaff House today. Up next, we bring you. Right, so I just got some not so good news about the UEFA Europa.
Yes, of course. Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea losing by 1-0.
They lost to Steaua Bucharest. Very, very disappointing result for the Chelsea faithfuls, obviously. And the club has been in a lot of turmoil lately, and it's continuing. The misery is continuing for them.
But it's not so bad. Well, I mean, we have a chance to make up when we play the second
in the second leg. But you know very well, 1-0 result in a UEFA Champions League or Europa game is very dicey, and Chelsea has to do a lot. Where's the confidence coming from?
God will provide.
Surely. We'll be coming back with all the details in sports after this.
Sports is brought to you in
so a lot is being done in the back room to ensure that the Black Stars qualify for the World Cup. And Minister of Youth and Sports Elvis Afriya met with ex-players drawn from the Black Stars Cup of Nations winning sides of 1963, 1965, 1978 and 1982 in his bid to help Ghana's quest of becoming a major sporting force and to revive the nation's glory days in football on the continent. Joy Sports cameras were there and captured this.
If you're talking about the history of football in this country, that history will not be complete without mentioning the names of these great people around us today. And as a new minister, and knowing that football is our passion, considering the fact that it was in their days that the Black Stars won many laurels, and we've been chasing a cup for several years, I thought it wise to invite them and interact with them and listen to them and listen to their experiences and their perspectives. And I can tell you that it's been a very, very great experience for me. I've learned a lot. My eyes have been open to many perspectives and dimensions and issues that I did not know about in the past.
Even during our meeting with the minister, something like that happened, that I even said some of these players are not committed to the game itself and also to the nation.
We know for some time now, for about 31 good years, the national team had not been able to capture the Cup of Nations. So he wanted us to counsel the now national team players so that they can get better and then win the cup for the nation.
All right, let's do some more soccer. And the national under-17 team are expected to...
The team will be traveling to somewhere in Europe. We're still working out with the plans. The team will be traveling out of the country on the training tour by the end of this month for a 2-week training tour. And then they will then move into Morocco around the 9th of April when the competition will start on the 13th of April.
All right, so that'll be all for sports, but just before I go, and as we were saying before, Chelsea lost to Steaua Bucharest by 1-0. A lot for the club to do, and the mystery for Chelsea actually continues. My name is George Adi Jr. Have a good night.
Sports was brought to you in association.
The Musicians Union of Ghana's Made in Ghana Music Week celebrations appears to be suffering some setbacks. The unity concert organized to celebrate Ghana's 56 years of independence did not only receive low patronage from the public, but also recorded no shows from most of the artists on the bill.
The concert, which was expected to start at 7 p.m., eventually kicked off after 9 p.m. with a relatively unknown reggae musicians as the opening act. 34 high-profile musicians, including high life great Daddy Lumba and Amachi Dede, Kojo Entry, International reggae act Rocky Dawuni, internationally renowned gospel singer Sonny Badu, and hip life act Samini, Sarkodie, VIP, Easy and Reggie Rockstone were expected to perform. But by the time the showbiz team left the Accra Sports Stadium, venue for the concert by midnight, only 6 of the artists on the bill had performed. And the crowd's response to their performance was, to say the least, not encouraging. But in spite of the poor patronage and participation, organizers say they hope to make it an annual affair.
It's going to be a yearly activity. It's going to happen once every year, from 4th to 9th March every year.
Joy News spoke with some patrons.
Whatever I'm seeing tonight is just something exclusive. The stage, the lighting system, the performances is just massive. I just love it.
The entertainment industry is such a very huge one, but had been neglected for long. Now, this having been drawn together and put together by the Musician Association is going to unify them. You know, there have been a lot of troubles within the association itself.
Right, Ghana's elections may be over, but the string of peace and unity concerts have not yet ended. It turns out there's another peace concert after Musica's unity concert last night. Jamaican reggae star Norris Mann is expected to headline a peace concert next week to raise funds.
In Ghana, I was so, I'm just in this hurry and this rush, forcing the plane to reach, like faster than its time. Just wanted to touch the soil, If I chose somewhere to live in Africa, I would live in Ghana. It's just perfect. You never miss Jamaica. Just seeing it on the internet, and all the places, the hotel, the resort, the streets, the little mini buses and all them stuff.
That's it for the bulletin, but before we go, Ghana's development partners have challenged President John Mahama to intensify his fight against corruption and also cut down on public spending. The Progressive People's Party has described the 2013 budget as a budget without hope for fundamental change, as it has failed to address the pressing needs of the country. Lapses in the transfer of power have prompted calls from policy analysts for a review of the Presidential Transition Act. In business, another indigenous firm has begun the assembling of trucks for the West African market.